Hello, everybody. So today I'm going to do a little quick video about the mushroom murder case here in Melbourne. Now, I don't want to say names because, and I know you can say the names, but I don't want to. I don't like doing that. But so what happened was that a woman here in Melbourne, country Victoria, um, decided to cook her lunch for some of her in-laws, including her father-in-law, mother-in-law, aunt-in-law, and uncle-in-law. And three of those four died as a result of eating the lunch. Now, the fourth one lived, and there were apparently other people there as well. She went to hospital herself, and her husband wasn't present. So she's been charged with three murders and one attempted murder. Now, originally she was also charged with a fifth count of attempted murder against her husband, but they dropped that mid case. Now, I wanted to look at this case and also lean on some of my experience with dealing with criminal cases such as this. Now, never dealt with a mushroom poisoning case, um, but I did deal with other cases in an administrative fashion. But suffice to say that I did enough cases that I have a good idea of the patterns. Now, one thing that I always worked on was what we called breakpoints. Now, breakpoints, and you'd have identifying breakpoints, and then you'd have breakpoint analysis. Essentially, you'd be looking at why you would win and why you would lose, and you do that from the prosecution point of view and also the defence point of view. Essentially, if there is no way that the prosecution can win, then you should not go ahead with the case, and we would drop a lot of cases. So part of my job was to advise the lawyers based on breakpoint analysis before the case began, before it was went to trial, and to advise them as to whether we had any realistic prospects of success. Now, some of the time we would still go ahead with a case when we knew we would lose, if it was in the public interest, and that counted for all murder cases. So a case like this would go ahead even if there was no realistic chance of success. And that could well be the case. We would never tell the public that. So, for example, this prosecutor went through the public prosecution's office. This prosecutor could well have decided on the breakpoint analysis that this one has no prospect of success and they would not be allowed to drop it because it was a murder case. And also, even if it wasn't a murder case, it was a case that had significant public interest. So do not assume that because they're prosecuting it, that the prosecution thinks that they can win. That's not the case with this sort of thing. So people need to understand that to start with, that with murder cases, they are required by law to prosecute them, even if there's no realistic chance of success. So that's one. And the second one is if it is otherwise in the public interest to see the outcome, then they would prosecute it. So, in other words, meaning both of those were criteria, but they still would probably have done a breakpoint analysis. So, if I was doing a breakpoint analysis, I would be expected to do it both for the prosecution angle and also the defence angle, because we would need to at least have some chance of success. So we need to meet our breakpoint analysis for why we would win as prosecution, and then we'd also need to avoid whatever we're going to lose as prosecution. How we're going to lose. So basically, we'd have to say, all right, this is how we're going to win. This is how we're going to lose. We want to try to go for the way to win, and we want to avoid the way to lose. But we're also then going to have two others, so four total. How the defence is going to win and how the defence is going to lose. So we want to obviously focus on making sure the defence lose and we win. So that those two, and avoid defence winning and prosecution losing. And the defence does the same thing. And so when I've also worked in defence, and they would do the same thing, but the other way, or at least they should. If they were competent, then that's what they would do. So I wanted to imagine what the breakpoint analysis for this case might be. Now, I obviously don't have all of the information at my disposal. I'm not working on the case. So I'm going to speculate. So if I was prosecuting, how I'm going to win is by convincing the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Erin Patterson, or the lady, the mushroom person, that she wanted to kill them, had a motive to kill them, and did kill them. So how I'm going to win is just making it seem like a simple story. If it's too convoluted, the jury are probably going to lose it. So I need to try to make that simple story, not just a theoretical, but a simple one. How I'm going to lose is if I either make it too complicated or I can't establish motive. Now, in theory, you can win without a motive, but realistically, without a motive, you're going to struggle because juries aren't going to believe it. And if your motive is too complicated, you're going to lose. Now, the defence side of things, how the defence is going to win is by saying either number one, it's an accident. So they're going to look for it being an accident because we know that people died. So we can't say somebody else did it. We're going to say it was an accident. And a big part of that is saying, well, Erin ate the food and she got sick. She had to go to hospital. And how the defence is going to lose is if there is some kind of established hatred from her towards the victims, the four victims, the three that died and the one that I think had to have a liver transplant. So probably the most crucial testimony is going to come from the guy that survived, which I think was her uncle-in-law, I think. And if because he could testify on that. So the case will probably be won or lost based on his testimony. I know we haven't got to that stage yet, but probably that's where it's going to happen. So if we're looking at how have we gone about this and where are we at? Well, firstly, there's no actual animosity between her and her in-laws, not even from her husband. So the husband is effectively a defence witness, and I know that they had him as sort of a prosecution witness. He was more for the defence because there's no animosity, there's no motive. So if you have a case with no motive, you most likely going to drop it. But as I said before, this is a murder case. You're not allowed to drop murder cases. And secondly, this is in the public interest, so they're not allowed to drop it. So we could well have a situation where prosecution are forced to go through with this, even though they know that they're not going to win. So, and that might seem strange, but when you have one in the public interest, a lot of people that are watching it need to have that closure. So she's prosecuting. They would be prosecuting her hard, knowing that they're probably going to lose because they don't have that motive. And you need to have the motive. And I know legally you don't, realistically you do, because a jury's not going to believe it. And the second problem is she ate the food. Now, there's some argument that oh, she had separate plates and all that, but she ate the food. So she could have died. So she doesn't hate them. She could have died. That's an accident. Now, the weakness of the defence, if you like, is that they were death cap mushrooms and she lied about them. So she lied about, well, she said she got from the grocers, then from some Chinese place, and then, oh, we actually got them. And also there's some dehydrator and she turned them into powder and all that. So that all sounds very suspicious. And that might work against the defence. That might work for the prosecution, but that is very circumstantial. You could still turn things into powder because that's the good recipe. She's actually quoted the recipe that she used, and it's from I think it's from Recipe Tin. It's called. I don't know that recipe book, but it's quite a well-known cookbook. And there's a recipe now. I'll try to look at it online. It's not available at the moment. You've got to buy the cookbook, but I'm pretty sure it'll say you have to have powdered mushroom. That you have to have powdered and put in a dehydrator. I'm going to guess that that's in the recipe. If that's in the recipe, that's not suspicious behaviour to do that. Is it suspicious to lie about it? Yes. She shouldn't have lied. So the jury will be thinking, oh, she lied about those things. That's suspicious. That's a bit like if, let's say, somebody dies in your house and you chop up the body and take it a long way away, chopped into little pieces, feed it to pigs. But that doesn't mean you murdered them. It's bad. You shouldn't be doing that. You're interfering with evidence, and that's a crime in itself. So she could be guilty of that sort of thing. But I mean, you look on the TV and you have people that have somebody just die of a heart attack in their home. They think it looks bad, so they chop the body up and feed it to pigs and all that. or however you dispose of bodies. I mean, I'm not sure if that actually works, but I've heard of that one. And however you do it, feed it with sharks. I don't know. But there's been cases of people doing that when someone died of a heart attack or died in an ordinary way. They just do that because they're worried that they look guilty. And she could well have done this because of the speculation, like she did it after they died, not before, after. She was worried she looked guilty, so she lied about a few things. Now that's perverting the course of justice, which itself can carry a prison sentence. So she could be looking at 10, 12 years for that. I don't know if she's been charged with that. I don't believe so, because it's often a bit of a hypothetical. They don't have to charge it. So, yeah, I'd say that what I know of the evidence so far suggests she'll probably be found not guilty. Now, it's not a guarantee that she'll be found not guilty because I think that some of the bits that she changed, some of the tampering with evidence and lying about things, might convince a jury. But the big issue is the motive. They have not established a motive. They haven't really even tried. And this suggests to me, the prosecution know they're going to lose, but they're going through the motions because they have to. And I could say that, like in my experience when I was working in that field, um, it did happen maybe 10, 15% of the time that we would prosecute cases we knew we were going to lose because, and we did lose them. I think we might have won one that we knew we were going to lose, and then, oh, we won. But you just go through the motions, and when you go through the motions, there's nothing wrong with, like, you can't blame the prosecutor. No, nobody's done anything wrong there. But yeah, you just do your best you can. You hope for a miracle, but you're not expecting it. And the defence may well know that that's the case as well. So you've got to realise that when you have a law case, prosecution and defence are usually friendly with each other. They'll meet together, they'll have lunches, they'll have coffee. They'll say, hey, yeah, my case is I'm going to lose, I'm going to win. And you do that. Oh, I can only talk so long and then my voice makes me cough. Anyway, yeah, so I think that most likely should be found not guilty. Um, if there was a lesser charge, such as negligence causing death or interfering with um, evidence or something like that, I think there'd be some chance. But I think for murder, unless the one that survived says something very different to what I'm expecting, and it's possible that he will. It's possible he'll say, "Oh no, that was definitely murder. She said she was going to kill them all." Blah blah blah. I think that she'll be found not guilty. But that's where we won or lost. I think that one witness, and I don't believe he's been called yet. I'm not sure. Might be a female, but I'm pretty sure it's a male. Coming in from his hospital bed, if he says, "No, we're just eating lunch. Sorry about that," case is over. She's won, and if it's like he says, "Oh no, we're in fear for her life. She was just," you know. But I mean, you obviously have to have some other evidence to back that up. It's not just going to be his say so, but that's where it's going to be won or lost. That's going to be the the crucial factor. And there's other bits on the side because this is the thing. You can have a case that could be 20 days, whatever, but there's one little thing which is where it's won or lost. In this case, the one little thing is where it's won or lost is the guy that survived. That's the thing. So if prosecution are going to win, he has to win it for them. If he doesn't pull it out, they they've got no chance. Even if he does pull out a miracle, I still don't think they're going to win. But if they're going to, it needs to be that. I do not see them winning without having that crucial evidence where he's saying the behaviour at the dinner table suggests that it was murder, that it was on purpose. Without that, don't see them winning. I guess we'll see what happens. I'm speculating a bit. Again, it's opinion. Opinions can never be false. I'm not trying to harm anyone's opinion, anyone's reputation. Just going to say my view is this is going to be a not guilty. We'll see what happens. I'm usually right, but sometimes I don't get all the information. I don't have all the information in this one, so I might be wrong. Yeah, that's it for me. Bye bye now.